Hello everyone, and I'm Autobot Sonic the Telltale Gamer, bringing latest something Transformers, Telltale games, and more. For this week's EarthSpark review, we're looking at Transformers EarthSpark Season 2, Episode 4, The Butterfly Effect. Now with this episode, it's a bit of a weird one, because when I first watched this episode, I remember having a pretty good time with it. But on a second rewatch, unfortunately, I see there are a lot of problems with this episode that I overlooked. And earlier when I said that In Ruins, episode 2 of this season was the worst episode in my opinion, I sadly might have to think this may be the weakest episode. Not because it's a bad episode, but just there are so many flaws in it that it's just very, very hard to ignore. And I'm for someone that can usually overlook stuff like animation mistakes and stuff like that, but when you have such an emotional episode like this one, I feel like that stuff needs to be looked at. And the fact that it's all throughout this episode, unlike In Ruins, it's something I just can't ignore. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and talk about this episode and see everything it did right and what it did wrong. The Butterfly Effect starts off not actually with any of the Maltos or Terrans, but actually a brand new character. So this intro actually gives us our introduction to the antagonist of this episode, a human named Fair Maestro. Now, as we'll come to learn later on throughout this episode, Fair Maestro is apparently this traveling con artist slash like procurer of different artifacts that he goes around with his little carnival around the world, presumably in search of stuff that he can trade with others. And apparently he's on good terms with Swindle, who actually comes here to trade some stuff with Fair Maestro. So it starts off with Swindle heading to the carnival, but it seems like he's trying to like ransack the place, but just there to make a deal with Fair Maestro. He starts off by giving Fair Maestro what it seems to be like this big energon flamethrower, as Swindle calls it. But then Fair Maestro ends up grabbing a flamethrower and tries to shoot Swindle with it, only to realize the flamethrower doesn't work at all, and that Swindle was essentially trying to, you guessed it, swindle Fair Maestro. So, of course, after this, Fair Maestro isn't impressed and tells Swindle to leave him alone, but then Swindle offers a bunch of other energon weapons that actually do work in the hopes of getting something good out of him. It's at this point then when Swindle notices that Fair Maestro has somehow come into possession of one of the Emberstone shards that he and the rest of the Decepticons are looking for. So he tries to bargain with Fair Maestro over it, saying how important this artifact is. However, after Fair Maestro realizes just how powerful this artifact could be, considering how badly Swindle wants it, he says that he's not willing to sell it and tells Swindle to get lost. And that's just where Swindle goes this episode. He just kind of goes out, leaves the episode for the entire time. He's just there to sort of introduce Fair Maestro. I think it's interesting, though, we got more Swindle, because I think Nolan North's always great as him. And Richard Ayoade as Fair Maestro here is really, really funny, honestly. I think his performance is a little flat throughout some points of this episode, but this little intro bit with Swindle I actually do enjoy. But anyways, after that, we cut later on into the night where now Robby, Mo, Twitch, and Thrash are hanging out at the fair. And as we hear from Robby and Mo later on in this scene, that essentially all the other Maltos, that's Jawbreaker, Hashtag Nightshade, Dot, and Alex, and Bumblebee, they're all busy looking for Emberstone shards or just on patrol in general. So with Robby, Mo, Twitch, and Thrash having a day off, essentially, they decide to spend it at the fair, since it's apparently the last day of the year the fair will be in town at Woodwicky. So at first, they're all just going ahead and enjoying all the games. I love too how Twitch goes to try and play the one of those like pop the balloons on the walls game to win a prize, but then Mo just says like, oh, like, don't feel bad that you lose, Twitch, they rig these games all the time anyway. And I love how Twitch just says here, they cheat? That's cheating. And it's so funny that I don't know, I'm a sucker for episodes of kids shows where like they go to like a carnival for the first time, or they take like their extraterrestrial friend to like a carnival for the first time and they don't understand how it works, and then when they say, oh yeah, they rig the games a lot, and they're like, oh, how could they? That's so mean. I don't know, Catherine Kavari did a great job as Twitch in that. But also, it's actually so good to get a proper Twitch, Thrash, Robby, and Mo episode. It makes me really think back to the good old days of the first batch of Season 1, where before Nightshade, Hashtag, and Jawbreaker were born, and we just had Twitch and Thrash and Robby and Mo. This is the closest to a Season 1A episode I think we're going to get outside of In Ruins, and I really appreciate that. I think that's a good little dynamic that we haven't really seen a lot since Hashtag, Nightshade, and Jawbreaker were born. So to have that same dynamic and feeling again, I really enjoyed that. There's also a brief point in this episode where, out of all people, Agent Schloeder actually shows up in this episode. So as they're walking through the fair, Thrash actually points out to Robby, Mo, and Twitch that Agent Schloeder is like part of the fair as like one of the people that you can like dunk in the water tank. Though for some reason, Agent Schloeder doesn't talk at all in this episode. He makes like a few like grunt noises that I'm sure are just like some stock footage, but they didn't actually get Mark Evan Jackson back as Schloeder. So Agent Schloeder's appearance in this episode just seems really forced and random. And I'm really kind of disappointed with that, actually, because after Croft died at the end of Season 1, and how big of a point Schloeder made it turned into a big character in the last 2 episodes of Season 1, I figured Schloeder was going to play at least a moderately decent role in Season 2, on the same level as, let's say, Alex or Dot. But this is literally Schloeder's only appearance in this entire first batch of Season 2, and he's literally just a background gag, or the excuse to have like a cop character, as we'll see later on in this episode. So it just feels weird, really, really weird to see Agent Schloeder in this episode and not be voiced at all. I will give the animators credit, though, that they did change Schloeder's design slightly, so that instead of having the ghost patch on his jacket that he ripped off at the end of Season 1, he instead has the same Autobot triangle symbol that Alita was putting on the Autobot base back in the last episode. I think that is a nice touch, but again, I'm just really, really disappointed with how EarthSpark Season 2 seems to be handling Schloeder, because I thought there could have been a really cool way of maybe Schloeder puts together like a new good version of Ghost, or at the very least converts what was left of Ghost over after Croft died and turned that into like a support force for the Autobots. But to see him just be a no voiced like cop essentially here that's just helping out the fair, it just feels really, really weird in my opinion. And I'm disappointed in that fact that they're just sort of writing Schloeder out of this. I don't know if it's because they couldn't get Mark Evan Jackson back as Schloeder for Season 2, but in that case, you're more than welcome to recast Schloeder, Hasbro. I mean, I liked Mark Evan Jackson as Schloeder, but I don't think it's going to ruin his character if you recast him. We've had characters recast all the time in different shows. This isn't going to... Recasting Schloeder won't ruin his character. So as Robby, Mo, Twitch, and Thrash are just having fun exploring the fair, they see this giant UFO ride. I think it's called like the Cosmic Thunder or Cosmic Twister that they want to go on, but the line is too long, and if they were to wait, the fair would be closed by the time they're about to get on and would have missed everything else. So Mo, Twitch, and Thrash decide to go ahead and check out the Tent of Curiosities that we saw Fair Maestro and Swindle at earlier in this episode, while Robby decides to go get a funnel cake before meeting them all. And here, Robby ends up meeting this girl that he immediately falls head over heels for. And so this is the crush character that the episode summary said that Robby would have a crush on. It wasn't a boy like I was hoping it would be, but that's totally fine by me. And so this is where the problem comes this episode. I don't hate Robby's relationship with this girl. I think it's really cute and very, very accurate to how a 13-year-old, 14-year-old boy would be like with their first crush. I know certainly very much so similar to one of my first crushes, I'll tell you that much. But the problem I have with this is I do not think Robby's facial animations throughout this whole episode do Robby's voice work justice. I think Cindy Michaela does a fantastic job as Robby in this episode. Her voice work as him is so good, and that she portrays him as such an awkward, obviously head over heels dude, where he is just fumbling all his talk to this girl, trying to come across as cool and explain himself to her, but he's just failing every single point. But it's so cute, but Robby just looks like he's constipated, honestly, throughout the majority of this episode. There are a few times where Robby's animations actually do look nice, and his facial work is really good, but most of the time, though, it just unfortunately comes across really, really flat. And when you're trying to sell to your audience that Robby is potentially in love with this girl, you gotta really make it seem like that he's both uncomfortable, but still really having a good time with her, because it just he looks so stiff, and I hate saying it because I know how 88 Pictures, what they had to do to get this to work, and compared to how much stress Icon Creative and Nickelodeon were put on back in Season 1, I understand that they had to do this because they didn't want to crunch, but I really hate saying they didn't put any effort into this, but come on, guys, like, this is like the one episode that you couldn't cut corners with, and it feels like you did, and I'm just really disappointed with that, sadly, and it just comes across like there's only so much good voice acting can do. Cindy Michaela does a great job as Robby, and so does Sienna Agudon as this girl that Robby has a crush on. For those of you who don't know, actually, from my older audience, Sienna Agudon, who voices this girl, who we find out her name later at the end of this episode, actually played Billy Wesker in the Netflix Resident Evil series that was canceled after a season. Now, I know that Resident Evil series got very bad reviews on Netflix and all that, but honestly, as a huge Resident Evil fan myself, I found it as a good, funny little detour throughout them from the main Resident Evil canon, and I enjoyed it. I thought Sienna Agudon did a really good job as Billy back in that show, and she does a good job as this girl too that Robby's crushing on, where we get to see a lot of cute stuff of them doing stuff. They go on a bunch of smaller rides together. They even play like Dance Dance Revolution. Though my favorite part about this is how Robby's crush on this girl affects Mo, Thrash, and Twitch, which is pretty much why this episode is called The Butterfly Effect. So while Robby's getting distracted hanging out with his new crush, I absolutely love this scene where Mo, Twitch, and Thrash are all hanging out in attentive curiosity, just looking at everything, talking to Fairmeister the whole time, where he tells them that while they can look at whatever they want, they can't touch anything. And so while Mo, Twitch, and Thrash are exploring everything though, they do notice, however, that Fairmeister does have an Emberstone shard. So at first they're trying to think out why he has it and how they can get it from him without causing any trouble. Though at the same time though, as Robby is hanging out with his crush, I absolutely love how it affects all three of them. So of course, like everything else we've seen throughout the series, as Mo and Thrash have, or Robby and Mo have their cyber sleeves, they can transmit their emotions to Twitch and Thrash and all the rest of the Terrians and vice versa. So because Robby's like so embarrassed or like just crushing so hard on this girl, with Mo, Thrash, and Twitch immediately start getting like really bad stomach aches and start like getting really embarrassed and stressed out the whole time. And I absolutely love this because it just feels like so funny that they have no idea what's going on. They think they're like being poisoned or something at some point, and it's absolutely hilarious because I think that's cute because, of course, being that they're all children, they never really experienced being in love before. Robby's really the first one to experience how it feels to be in love with someone. And the fact that Mo, Twitch, and Thrash don't understand what this is, they think they're like dying or something the whole time, trying to think about different ways to get the Emberstone shard at the same time. It's actually like the highlight of this episode. I love that. I want to see more of this shenanigans with like one of the Maltos having a crush on someone while the other Terrans are trying to like struggle with not like feeling like they're dying of stress and stuff like that. It's just hilarious. But anyway, eventually it gets to the point where the stress of Robby's crush on this girl is coming so down hard on Mo, Twitch, and Thrash that Thrash decides to just go ahead and yank the Emberstone shard and try to escape the fair with it. However, he gets caught by Fairmaestro, and then a little chase scene starts with Mo, Twitch, and Thrash all running away from Fairmaestro. It's a very much so like a Scooby-Doo chase scene. Nothing really very extraordinary happens here, which I think is kind of a bit disappointing considering the storyboard arc of the episode is none other than Lillian Fiedler. Now, if you remember my big video on EarthSpark Season 1 a few months ago, I stated that Lillian Fiedler announced that she was working on EarthSpark Season 2 back in January of last year, and she worked on this episode and another episode later on this batch. Though, based on like the storyboard work that she has done before, she is incredible with her storyboards. Like, look at this one storyboard she did of her gender-bent versions of Megatron and Starscream fighting each other. Her artwork is just so good. But the thing is, I don't think the action in this episode really lets her show off her talent, really. This episode is just a bunch of Mo, Twitch, and Thrash running away from Fairmaestro. It's not really a lot of fighting in this, which is what Lillian Fiedler is good at. I'm not saying that she did a bad job in this episode. I just don't think this episode's action was really catered to what Lillian Fiedler is good at. I think her next episode that she did better complements her projects, but I think she did a good job of what she has so far, even though, again, like I said back in my episode 3 review, some of the running animations that humans do is just a bit janky. Like, the biggest example is, it's fine for the most part, except for this one part in the very beginning of the chase where Mo is running away from Fairmaestro, or Fairmaestro's running away from Mo, one of the two, I think. And literally, it looks like they're on like a treadmill running backwards. Like, they're running so fast, but they're moving so little, and it just comes across as so awkward. But regardless of that, though, it's a serviceable chase scene, I'll give him that. Anyway, the chase ends with Fairmaestro grabbing the Emberstone shard back from Mo, Twitch, and Thrash, though eventually at this point, Mo just decides to go ahead and puts on her cyber suit, threatening to attack Fairmaestro if he doesn't give them back the shard. Though Fairmaestro then suddenly throws two those stasis inducers we saw Bumblebee use on Soundwave in his cassettes back in Season 1. He throws them onto Twitch and Thrash, forcing them into their alt modes, and then puts Mo in like this big force field-like contraption, where he then starts to question Mo as to what exactly is the Emberstone shard, though she refuses to tell him because she tries to say that it's like a very dangerous artifact and they can't let anyone misuse it because it could do great harm to the world. However, Fair Maestro then says that he actually knows about the Ember Stone and that it can apparently give life to or create new Transformers. So he thinks of using the Ember Stone Shard as this artifact, thinking that it is the Ember Stone, and wants to keep it so that he can create a bunch of, like, his own army of Transformers for whatever purpose he has. Though, considering Fair Maestro's whole thing is that he collects a bunch of different oddities, my guess is I think he plans to use these Transformers as different, like, attractions for his carnival, which, honestly, it feels very on brand for, like, a Transformers animated style supervillain. As someone who's, like, maybe only seen 1 or 2 episodes of animated, it feels very on brand that, like, Fair Maestro would have fit perfectly in, animated in my regards, and I do like his character for that. So he takes away Twitch and Thrash, hoping to make them as permanent parts of his carnival, while Mo is still stuck in the force field, though she eventually does manage to break out with the use of her cyber suit and cyber blade, and decides to go and save Twitch and Thrash, while Fair Maestro is still deciding what he's going to do with them. It's at this point when Mo saves Twitch and Thrash from Fair Maestro and are chasing him again around the carnival that Robby finally gets on it, like, a notification on his cyber sleeve that Twitch and Thrash are in trouble. Though he tries to, like, to hold it off as long as he can because he doesn't want to ruin his date with this girl. And just when they're about to go on the Cosmic Thunder as well. So as they're getting in line, getting ready to start it, Fair Maestro just cuts past them and instead takes off on the Cosmic Thunder, and turns out it's a whole giant UFO. It's not just a ride, it's an actual UFO. It just takes off, lifts out of the sky, up into the sky, where Fair Maestro plans to escape with the Ember Stone Shard. So Mo and Twitch and Thrash explain to Robby what's going on, that they need to go after the shard. So at this point, Robby does cut his date short and transforms with a cyber field. Though it's at this point, though, Twitch is the one who finally recognizes that Robby does in fact have a crush on this girl, because when he's talking to the girl in front of them all and introducing Twitch, Thrash, and Mo to her, you can tell Robby's getting, like, embarrassed and all that. And then the way Robby acts and how Twitch feels seeing Robby like this, Twitch says, "Oh, I read about this online. Robby has a crush on her." And it's so, like, kids cartoon humor embarrassing. It's really cute in my opinion that Mo, Twitch, and Thrash are, like, embarrassing Robby in front of his crush like that. Though at this point, though, with all of them so intimately bound together with Robby's crush on this girl, that apparently is enough to unlock the ability to cyber sync with all of them. So at this point, Robby and Mo start just flying up into the air with the two of them as well as Twitch and Thrash in this giant pillar of light. And at this point, they all combine into what it looks to be a giant, like, 2-man hovercraft almost, where Twitch and Thrash turn into this hovercraft where Twitch's, like, drone wings are on the side, and then the body is, like, white and red, like Thrash and Twitch mixed together. And as we see, Robby and Mo pilot the ship and go after Fair Maestro in the Cosmic Thunder ride, while Twitch focuses on all of the vertical maneuvering of the flying, while Thrash just handles all the acceleration and boosting since he's all about going fast. And I think that's a really cool way of doing it. I would have really wished that CyberSync could involve basically sort of a fusion where they become all together one brand new character, like, let's say, Gem Fusion Steven Universe. But this way of them sort of still having each individual, like, mind and character as just a combined body is interesting, so I'll give them that. But unfortunately, this is really the only time cybersyncing comes into play in this batch. So hopefully we'll see cybersyncing again in the next batch of Season 2, because right now it just feels like it's just a little bit of a gimmick. So as they're chasing Fair Maestro, Robby and Mo realize that they can, like, give Twitch and Thrash weapons through their cyber syncing. So a bunch of, like, energy, like, cyber blades that look in the same vein as Mo's cyber blade start jutting out of the Twitch and Thrash cyber combiner and start, like, shooting at Fair Maestro in the Cosmic Thunder. And as a bunch of the hits are hitting his UFO, one of them ends up hitting this, like, rusted off spot of it, revealing that it's not a ride, it's a whole Autobot. And of course, surprise, surprise, if you were paying attention to this Autobot's ult mode and color scheme, you know this is in fact Cosmos. And so eventually Robby and Mo shoot just right at Cosmos, causing a trapdoor to open under Fair Maestro, causing him to get sucked out of Cosmos and fall down with the Emberstone Shard. Though at this point, Cosmos transforms and actually catches Fair Maestro and the Emberstone Shard. And I gotta say, honestly, I really like EarthSpark Cosmos' design. It feels very much so on brand of what Cosmos looks like in other, like, Transformers properties. Most specifically, I'm thinking of G1 and the IEW comics. But it's got that unique EarthSpark feel to it. And I just love how boxy and just overall huge Cosmos is. He just looks so cute and adorable, and I love that. Though, also here at this point, we finally also get to hear Weird Al Yankovic as Cosmos. His role in this episode is very, very minor, but I gotta say, hearing Weird Al Yankovic as Cosmos and just be his kooky, weird self, you can tell that he had a great time voicing Cosmos. And of course, it's great to have him back after he previously voiced Wreck-Gar almost 15 years ago back in Transformers Animated. It's like he never left voicing Transformers, though it's the end. It is cool to see Weird Al Yankovic as Cosmos in here. One of my favorite parts is after he catches Fair Maestro in the Emberstone Shard and, like, dumps him in the same dunk tank that Schlotter was in at the beginning of this episode. We actually see Cosmos talking to Robby, Mo, Twitch, and Thrash, where he's wondering, like, who they are and how long it's been, because apparently he's been stuck under as Fair Maestro's Cosmic Thunder ride for the past 16 years, which means he did not see the end of the war, and apparently none of the Autobots just knew where Cosmos was. Maybe they just assumed he died towards the end of the war and never bothered looking for him. Because I don't know, Optimus, that's kind of a jerk move, the fact that you never bothered to look for Cosmos in the past 16 years. But anyway, I do have this one part where Robby and Mo claim himself saying that, oh, we're friends of Optimus and Megatron, so if you have any problems, you can come to talk to us. And Cosmos like, wait, Megatron, you're friends with him now? And then I just love that. Weird Al Yankovic is so good as Cosmos here. Though, at this point, though, Schlotter does arrest Fair Maestro for his last little scene of this episode. And as Fair Maestro, though, is being arrested by Schlotter, though, Fair Maestro manages to throw down another one of his smoke bombs and escapes. So, presumably this is so that Fair Maestro might come back as a minor villain later on in the next batch of Season 2. Though, I really hope they do more of this character, but at the same time, also do more with Schlotter. I feel it was a waste to just have him like this as a no-voice role, and I really hope we get to see more of him in the future. Anyway, the episode then ends with a fair closing and Robby or Twitch, Thrash, and Mo asking Robby if he had a good time with his date. At this point, Robby realizes he totally forgot to ask the girl's name, and so he sees her leaving the fair, though just manages to catch her at the very end, where she reveals that her name is Izzy and that she goes to Witwicky High School now with Robby, and that she looks forward to seeing him again so they can go on another date. So, hopefully we see Izzy again. I don't think she's going to be a main character in the sense that, like, Robby and Mo are, but it would be cool to see her show up, like, once or twice more times before this season ends. I think it would be cool to have her and Robby have a proper thing. But anyway, that's how the episode ends, with just Robby meeting this girl Izzy, and the two of them starting just a little cute relationship that I hope to see evolve throughout the rest of Season 2. And so, that was my review of Transformers EarthSpark Season 2, Episode 4, The Butterfly Effect. If I had to rate this episode, I would sadly give it a 6.5 out of 10. There are some really good parts of this episode, like Robby's interactions with Izzy throughout this episode, and how Twitch, Thrash, and Mo are all, like, start getting stressed out and, like, start getting affected by Robby's crush on Izzy is really, really cute. But the fact that Robby's facial animations, in such a pivotal moment as this, where he's supposed to be showing head over heels in love with this girl, it just comes across like he's not in love with her at all, even though Sidney Michaela's voice acting is so good. His voice acting, or his facial animations don't match Sidney Michaela's voice acting, and I just don't really like that. Same with Richard Ayoade as Fair Maestro. I feel like his facial animations actually are nice, but I don't think Richard Ayoade's voice doesn't really fit Fair Maestro at times. Weird Al Yankovic, though, was great as Cosmos, and it was nice to have him in a little, like, cameo role like this. And the cyber syncing with Twitch and Thrash turning into that giant two-person hovercraft was cool as well. I just wish, though, again, it feels like it's something that not everyone is going to enjoy, myself especially, but I'm not saying if you guys like this episode, if you're more than welcome to. I'm not saying that, like, oh, if you like this episode, you have a bad taste. It just, this episode wasn't for me, and I think it's tied with In Ruins as the worst episode of Season 2A, in my opinion. But anyway, that's going to be it for this review. I'll be back next week with Episode 5, Togetherness. If you like this review, be sure to like, comment, and of course subscribe, and I will see you guys later.